Okay, so in this video, we're going to be talking about compositions, and this is fairly easy. You're essentially going to be evaluating a function by using another function, okay? So for example, just as a quick refresher, if I had f of 2, that's telling me to plug in a 2 wherever I see an x on this f of x function, okay? So for example, you would do 2 and then squared and then plus 2, and you would evaluate, right? If I look at g of x, if I had g of 3, that's telling me to plug in a 3 wherever I see an x on this g of x function. So that would look like this, where I have 2 times 3, right? And I would evaluate. Well, it's very similar when you're doing compositions, except you're not using an actual value. You're going to be using a function instead. So in other words, instead of plugging in a 2, you would be plugging in an actual function here. Same thing here. Instead of plugging in a 3, you would be plugging in an actual function, okay? So let's talk about how that's going to look. Let me go ahead and get rid of all this stuff here. And what are they asking us to find here? Well, it says right here, it says find f of g of x. So that means I'm going to take my g of x function, and wherever I see an x on my f of x function, I'm going to plug in g of x, okay? So for example, here's f of x. Wherever I see an x, I'm plugging in g of x. So here's my x right here, meaning I have to plug in that g of x function, which is going to be 2x. So when I plug this in, I get the following. I get f of g of x equal to, well, here's my x. I'm going to plug in 2x. So I get 2x. Make sure you put it in parentheses. That's very important. Close it, and then I have to square it, and then plus 2. And from here, all I have to do is simplify it down. I get f of g of x equal to, well, remember, this exponent has to be applied to both the 2 and the x. So that's going to give me 4x squared and then plus 2. Okay, and this problem's done. Okay, that is the composition. All right, there's really not much to it, but why don't we go ahead and try some more examples? Okay, so here's my next example, and this is another composition, except it's written a little bit different. If you take a look at this open circle here, that is not multiplication. That means they want you to take the composition of these functions. And it's just like the other problem, except they wrote it a bit different. What they essentially want you to do here is f of g of x, okay? So when you see it written in this format here, just go left to right. So f comes first, that means it goes on the outside, and then I have g, and I'm going to write it as g of x on the inside, okay? So just understand that there's two different ways of writing these compositions, but they both want you to do the same thing, so just keep that in mind, all right? So again, they want you to do here f of g of x, okay? So again, wherever I see an x on my f of x function right here, I'm going to be plugging in x squared minus 3, okay? So let's go ahead and write it out. I have f of g of x equal to the square root of, so here's my x. I'm going to plug in what g of x actually is. It's x squared minus 3. So I'm going to plug in x squared minus 3. Okay, so I just plug this part into x, and then I have plus 3 remaining. So I'm going to put plus 3 right here. And then I'm pretty much done. I just have to simplify it down. I have a negative 3 and a positive 3. They're going to go ahead and cancel each other out. And then I have the square root of x squared. Well, that's just going to be x. So I have f of g of x equal to x. Okay, this one's done. All right, why don't we go ahead and try 2 more examples. So here's my next example. This one's written in that traditional format that we saw at the beginning. So they want me to do g of f of x. So I'm going to take my f of x function, and wherever I see an x on g of x, I'm plugging in what f of x is. All right, so I'm going to write here g of f of x. Okay, so looking at g of x, here's my x. That means I have to plug in x plus 4. Okay, so make sure you're doing it in parentheses because you do have an exponent right here. Okay, so in parentheses, I'm plugging in x plus 4 and then squaring it, and I still have this negative 5 on the outside. All right, so minus 5. Now from here, be careful. You have to do FOIL here. You're not going to take this 2 and distribute to both of your terms. That would be incorrect. That is a binomial, And when you have a binomial raised to the power of 2, you have to expand it out using FOIL. So in other words, you're going to be doing x plus 4 times x plus 4. Okay? So you want to do here first, outside, inside, last. And you can probably do that in your head. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and rewrite it as g of f of x equal to, when you do FOIL here, you should get x squared plus 8x plus 16. And then again, I still have this negative 5 here, so I have to put minus 5. And from here, I have one more step. I have like terms. I have 16 minus 5. That is going to give me 11. So I'm going to put here g of f of x equal to x squared plus 8x and then plus 11. Okay, and that's done. So there it is. Okay, why don't we go ahead and try one more example. So here's our next example, and you can see that this one is written in that different format, but again, it's still a composition. So going left to right, I'm going to write it in the format that we saw at the beginning, and that would be g of f of x, okay? That's what they want us to do here. So I'm going to take my f of x function, and wherever I see an x on g of x, I'm plugging in what f of x is, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and write here g of f of x equal to, so let's go ahead and plug it in. So again, I'm using g of x. Wherever I see an x, I'm plugging in f of x, which is going to be 2x. So in parentheses here, I'm going to put 2x, and then I'm going to square it, and then I have plus 2. Here's another x. I'm going to plug in 2x, right? And then I have minus 2. From here, we just have to clean it up. So g of f of x is equal to, remember, this exponent of 2 gets applied to both the 2 and the x. That will give you 4x squared. So 4x squared. This will give me plus 4x. And then minus 2. Okay, and there's nothing else we can do here. This problem is now done. All right, so that is compositions. It's pretty straightforward. Just remember, there's two different formats that you could have. And if you have it in this format right here, just remember it actually means this right here. So you can always take it out of that format and put it in the format that's more obvious to you. But again, just keep that in the back of your mind that there are two different ways of writing these compositions, but they do mean the same exact thing. All right, so that is it. I hope that you gained something from the video. I hope that you learned something. If the video did in fact help you, if you could just go ahead and give it a thumbs up, that would be greatly appreciated. Also, make sure you subscribe to this channel. That way you get more math videos in the future, and I'll see you in the next one.